Bon après-midi à tous et bienvenue à cette rencontre du Comité de dérogation pour la Ville d'Ottawa. Welcome everyone to this Committee of Adjustment hearing for the City of Ottawa. We are a quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances and consents to sever. Our hearings are back to being in person, but that said, the committee can enable remote participation by video conferencing when requested by registered speakers. We are live streaming on YouTube, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public on the committee's website. My name is Anne Tremblay, and I will be chairing today's hearings. With me today are my fellow panel members, Mr. John Blatherwick, Mr. Simon Coakley, Mr. Arto Keklikan, and Ms. Lecuyer, who is online. All right, in terms of the procedures, the hearings will unfold essentially as follows. We have an agenda. It's a very short agenda this afternoon, which is great. Essentially those items come in and are put on the agenda just pretty much first come, first serve. And but the chair has the discretion to move some of those around. To be honest with you, I think we're going to be dealing with a number of adjournments, and I think we'll go back to the regular agenda. So note that the panel members have reviewed all the materials related to the applications before us today, including any planning reports and any written submissions in support or in opposition. So we do spend quite a bit of time before we ever get into this hearing, reviewing all of the materials that have been submitted in connection with an application. So as part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. They also are required to confirm in writing that they did so. And if we don't have your statutory declaration hard copy, then we can do it verbally through swearing or an affirmation oath. Otherwise, if we don't get either one of those, then we do have to postpone hearing of the application. So the panel may ask for a brief presentation of an application followed by questions. And sometimes we go just to questions because the application may be fairly straightforward. Then we will hear from members of the public, starting with those who are on the speakers list. And then we open it up to anyone else who might have an interest and may want to address the panel. Finally, the applicant who has the burden of proof will have the opportunity to make final comments and reply. I'm going to ask you to please address all your questions and comments through me as the chair, starting. And if you're not on the list and you want to come down, and speak to the committee, that's quite fine. But I'm going to ask you to start with your name. May ask you to spell your last name and then give us your municipal address if you could, please. So all presentations are limited to 5 minutes, and any exceptions are at the chair's discretion. So at the end of the hearing on an application, the panel will either make an oral decision or we may reserve on a decision. In the latter case, though, the committee's decision is not delivered within the context of the hearing, but is delivered within, we make a decision before we leave today, in other words. So however, in both cases, then within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send an official written decision and reasons for it to all parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy of the decision. Any questions from anybody on that? Really straightforward. All right. We're going to go to our items of business, and the first one is the declaration of conflict of interest. Is there anyone on this panel who has a declaration of conflict with either items on our agenda or other panel agendas? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Member Blatherwick.
Madam Chair, I have a conflict of interest regarding 429 Ancaster, which was a panel 2 application. That's an application in my neighborhood, and I always recuse when there's an application in the neighborhood. Plus, at some point in the past, before an application was filed with this committee, one of the principals had a discussion with myself and other people in the room regarding the potential for development on the site. So, in an abundance of caution.
All right, thank you, Member Blatherwick. Anyone else? No. Okay, with that, then we can go to confirmation of the minutes. So we have 2 dates for confirmation that we need to address. So September 6th, do I get confirmation? Everyone's okay with the minutes? Any changes? No? All right, so the minutes of September 6th are confirmed. September 20th, anyone
No.
We're good? All right, so the minutes of September 20th are also confirmed. I think that brings us now to the items on our agenda. And we're going to start with an easy one, which is a withdrawal. So for the record, the application for 87 Concord Street North is
Madam
oh,
Chair,
sorry.
it's 589.
Yes, thank you. I just noticed that it's on the top of my list instead of the bottom. I was expecting the bottom. So thank you for that. So it's in fact 598 Kirkwood Avenue, and the agent is Mr. Bisson. Is he here today? Just out of curiosity? No? Okay, doesn't need to be. That's okay. So we do have in writing from Mr. Bisson that they are now in compliance with the zoning bylaw, and so are withdrawing that application. So for the record, it's off our docket. We now have adjournment requests. The first one is for 23 Strathcona Avenue. It's item number 4. Looking for Mr. Falbo.
It's just dealing with a bad situation right now.
All right, we'll go to the next one then. Okay. Okay, we'll step that one down. Adjournment for 87 Concord Street North. Item number 5, Mr. Jones. Come on forward. All right, so you're going to have to tell me who's Mr. Jones and who is the other participant for the record, and I need your name and your municipal address, please.
David Jones from Amstead Design Build, and to my.
I'm Eric Ross, ROSS, resident of 87 Concord Street North.
All right, thank you. You're aware that there is a request for adjournment on your application?
Yes, we are aware, but we have complied to all requests. So we to not request the adjournment.
All right, so you do not want to adjourn?
No.
Okay, so my understanding is that we're talking about a tree information report, if I got that correctly. And just a minute, I want to make sure we have the planner with us, just because we may need the input from Ms. Linker. Ms. Linker, are you with us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so my understanding is that an adjournment is required because the tree information, a revised tree information report was submitted just this morning. Is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would defer to Ms. Murray to speak on this matter. However, it's my understanding that the tree information report that was submitted was satisfactory to Ms. Murray for the application to be heard today.
All right, so is Ms. Murray, if you could join us, please. So Ms. Murray, can you tell me what is like, have you had a chance to review it and when did you receive it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Ms. Linker is correct in that the original TIR we received through the original circulation was satisfactory, but based on the comments that came in from the community group, the applicant and I discussed revising the plan shown in the TIR to be clearer and depict the tree protection fencing zone better for the site, to better represent the true scale. So they provided updated map at the last page of the report to better show that the tree protection fencing was not overlapping with the design as it originally appeared.
So Ms. Murray, when was that submitted?
That was submitted last night.
Okay, so the community association hasn't had a chance to see it, is that correct?
I'm not aware.
Ms. Linker, do you know if it's been submitted to the community association? They've had a chance to have a look?
Madam Chair, I'm not aware if it's been submitted to the community association.
Mr. Jones, did you submit that revised plan to the community association given their concerns?
There was an email sent, but I have not got a confirmation that it was received as of this morning.
Right. Do we have Mr. Dance in the audience? All right, I'm not seeing Mr. Dance. All right, given that the community association has requested an opportunity to review that, I'd like input from the other members, but I think it would be probably courteous to give them till the next meeting. So we wouldn't be extending it beyond 2 weeks. We would be going to the November 1st meeting. Would that be acceptable to you?
Yes, that would be acceptable.
Madam Chair, if I could interrupt, we do have a representative from Old Ottawa East online now.
Thank you. So who would that be?
Hi, this is Joseph Sleeman.
All right, can you tell me, so you're a member of the community association, you're on the phone, so I take it you're not on virtually.
Yeah, I'm on virtually here. I'm on the Zoom call.
Oh, okay, so why are we not seeing you?
Sorry, I think my audio or my video just dropped for a second. I'm here.
Okay, so are you speaking for Mr. Dance then, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And have you had a chance to see that revised plan?
Yes, I have.
All right, so is it satisfactory to the community association with those revisions?
Sorry, you're talking about there wasn't a new plan. I just joined the Zoom call, so it wasn't sent out today, right? This was sent out in the last few days.
Last night.
Perfect. Then yes, I think we did see it. So yeah.
Have you had a chance to review it, Mr. Sullivan?
I didn't review it super closely myself, no, but I spoke to John about it.
And
Sorry. Yeah, you just have to give me a second here. I just joined the Zoom call. I'm just trying to sort out. But could you give me a minute to just sort out my thoughts here? Thanks.
Yes, that's fine.
Thanks.
It seems everything's happening very quickly. So I'm kind of thinking 2 weeks might be helpful. All right. Mr. Sleeman?
Yes. Yes. So in short, there's no objection to the plan itself or no kind of concerns about the plan itself, only that the treatment of the tree on site at 87 Concord North. We actually, all of us had passed by in the last couple of days, and everybody's concerned about the boundaries required for the tree with regards to like the roots and also I believe it's called the CRZ around it. So like what like the actual tree itself needs to be better protected. But in terms of the actual building changes, there's no concern there.
All right, we're just talking about the tree at this point. So Ms. Murray, if you could come back, please. Yeah, I think we heard from you, but I just want to confirm that you're satisfied with the changes to the site plan, the way to reflect the changes we need to protect the tree. Is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I can confirm the plan is adequate. I'll quickly note on the comments related to the tree protection as currently observed. So I met with the applicant's agent yesterday, Mr. Jones, and he had noted that there is some foundation work happening on the property, and the current contractor was responsible for debris and whatnot around this tree. So the forestry inspector has been involved, the landlord is aware of this issue, and it's being rectified.
All right, okay. Sounds like then there likely wouldn't be a lot of benefit to putting this off then. Mr. Sleeman, your thoughts on that?
I mean, if it's being taken care of, then yeah, that should work.
All right, members of the panel, those in favor of hearing this application? All right, then, Mr. Jones, we will call you back down after we've dealt with the second adjournment. Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Madam Chair.
We're going to go now back to Strathcona. Is that the one we were at? Yes, Mr. Falbo. Still not here. Okay, all right. That's fine. Okay, then let's do another easy do. We thought it was an easy do. Another easy do. Application number 1, I believe, is what we want, which is for 540 Golden, looking for Agent Cox. Do we have the agent with us?
Hello,
Cox? Yes, hello, Mr. Cox.
Sam Cox here. Yeah, thanks.
All right. So, Mr. Cox, we're not asking for a presentation. We don't have any questions. The committee has reviewed your application. So I'm just going to ask the planner, just to be sure, we have all of the information required. Ms. Alcatab, can you just confirm that the information we have is complete? No new
Yes.
information?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. So in that case, then I'm just going to make a call out. I don't believe we have anyone. No, there's no one on our speakers list. So is there anyone in the audience, online or in person, who would like to speak to this application, either for or against? This is an application for minor variance at 540 Golden. Going once, going twice. All right. With that, then, the members of the panel, all those in favor? Okay, so for the record, the application is unanimously granted. Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so we're going to go back. I think where I'd like to go then is number 3, if we could. And looking for Mr. Shank. All right, so who's Marc Alexandre Schenk? All right. So that's who I have down for 138 Ford Avenue.
Through you, Chair, my name is Evan Saunders with Foten Planning and Design, and I should be listed as the applicant, as the agent on the file.
Oh, actually you are, Mr. Saunders. I was looking at the owner line. Okay. So on this, I don't believe the committee is looking for a presentation. So I'm just going to open it up to, oh, and before I do that, we do have a housekeeping amendment on your notice. Our understanding is that it is not a 20 unit, but rather an 18 unit proposal, correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, and you also have a site plan application on the go for this proposal as well?
Through you, Chair, there was a previous site plan approval on the site in 2021. And as a result of this application, if it is approved, a subsequent site plan revision application will need to be put forward.
Okay, but there is no revision application that is actually submitted at this point?
Not currently, no.
All right, so I'm going to look to Mr. Billmore because I think that takes a notice amendment so that we reflect that in fact there is no. So this site plan control application is sort of a done thing at this point.
It's not technically an amendment to the application, but we will note it on the decision that it's subject to site plan control.
It's subject to it, but there's no active application for revisions to the site plan.
If it's not a current application, we don't have to list it.
All right, so just going back to the notice then what I would suggest, because what they're proposing is no longer this site plan application, but a revision to the site plan application. So I would simply strike this from the notice. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so with that then, I'm just trying to make sure we have all our housekeeping items in order. Okay, well, so I think I'm just going to open it up to our committee members. Yes, Member Blatherwick, go ahead, please.
Ms. Linker, I note in your comments, the staff comments, that the proposed rear-facing balcony should have a 1.5 meter high opaque screen facing the interior side yard setback to reduce potential overlook. And I'm just wondering if that's sufficient, given that this committee in the past has imposed conditions that request a 2.1 meter privacy screen along the sides of balconies to provide better screening for an overlook situation. As far as you're concerned, is this 1.5 meters sufficient?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. The 1.5 meter opaque screen is a requirement under the zoning bylaw, and it wasn't clear to me on the plans if that was being provided or not. So that's why I made a note in the text just to ensure that this would be zoning compliant when it does come to building permit eventually.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Linker. So Mr. Saunders, would your client be willing to put 2.1 meter privacy screens along the short sides of these balconies to provide adequate privacy screening?
Through you, Chair, yes, we would be prepared to provide those privacy.
And is the rest of the balustrade on these balconies opaque?
Through you, Chair, I don't know if this has been decided at this point in terms of the specific details of the balcony features.
So what kind of buildings are directly behind your site, just out of curiosity?
Directly behind our site are properties that front onto Parkdale Avenue. Directly behind us is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a bit offset, but it's a detached dwelling. And then beside that are some high-rise apartment buildings. So as I mentioned in our planning rationale, given the additional 6-meter laneway that sits behind our property, there's, if I'm not mistaken, there's approximately 11 meters of separation between the rear building wall, rear building face of our property, and then the rear line of the abutting property to the rear, beyond the laneway.
Okay. All right. So your client would be amenable to putting a 2.1 meter privacy screen on. So if we added that as a condition, you're okay with that?
That's correct.
Well, that means you'd have to supply us with a modified design.
Through you, Chair, as part of an amended plan, we can provide an amended elevation indicating the specific materiality.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Member Blatherwick. So just go back to you, Mr. Saunders, for a moment. Does the plan actually show the opaque, like the screening right now?
I don't have the elevations in front of me, but we can confirm that through the plans and through the planner and through the coordinator and confirm that that's if that's shown or not.
All right, I'm just, Ms. Linker, I think I heard you say that you reviewed the plan and you couldn't actually confirm that it was on there. Is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that's correct. I wasn't able to confirm if they were opaque screens facing the interior lot lines to prevent overlooking issues into the abutting properties to either side. And I added that as a comment for the applicant to, if necessary, add that at the building permit stage, as that would bring the plans into compliance with the zoning bylaw.
All right, so going back then to how we're going to do the mechanics on this, is this in fact, Mr. Saunders, what you would be amending as part of an approval? Because we will ask for a revised plan and tie it to those plans. So is that what we're talking about here?
Through you, yes, we would provide the materiality indicators on the revised elevations, which would then be, as Ms. Linger had indicated, would then result in a zoning compliant balcony materiality. So as a result, the new subsequent plans that are going to be provided through this application will make sure that those are included on the interior facing balcony faces.
All right, so now I'm getting really confused. So I want to make sure that our approval is tied to plans that show a 2.5 meter screen. So that's what I want. I need to hear from you. How are you going to make that happen?
Through you, Chair, the 2.1 meter balcony faces will indicate on the plans the height and materiality on the elevations for the rear facing balconies as they face the interior lot lines.
All right, so do we have a specific, like, what I'd like to be able to do is tie it to a specific plan that we're going to be amending then, so that when we give our approval is as revised on plan elevation X, so that we know exactly what we're talking about.
Is there, may I speak, Chair? Is there, if we say, yes, we'll resubmit elevations titled X, and we do that by the end of the week, is that acceptable to this panel?
So I believe so. I'm looking for a secretary treasurer and deputy. Yes. All right.
Yes,
so that's
if you
efficient.
send in to the Committee of Adjustment, general email inbox, we will date stamp those plans and then the decision will reflect that date.
All right. As the architect isn't here, I can't confirm the exact date, but we will submit revised elevations with the same page number and a new revision to that inbox for the committee's approval to be tied to those plans.
All right, that's perfect. Any other questions from any members of the panel? Yes, Mr. Nikuji, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pardon my voice. I just had a question for the agent. I noticed on page 1 of the cover letter that it suggests that the properties behind the existing subject property is Scott Street, when in fact I believe it is Parkdale. And on page 11, it states that the proposed development is an apartment building that will contain 10 units. Which also doesn't appear to be correct. So I'm just a bit concerned about quality control and wondered if these are errors that I caught, what else have I not caught? Can you respond to that, please?
In response to your first comment, that is an error on our part, and I apologize for that. That's just a mislabeling of the street. As I mentioned, it's Parkdale, in fact, not Scott Street. And sorry, through you, Chair Member, would you be able to repeat your second comment?
Yeah, second comment was page 11. Under 4.3, the proposed development consists of the establishment of a 3.5-story low-rise apartment building containing 10 units.
Again, through you, Chair, that's an error on my part, and I apologize for that. But as I would recommend, this is an error on my part and not a reflection of the application as a whole.
Any follow-up questions? All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, if that's the end of the questions from the panel, we will go to, do I have anybody on my list here for forward? No. Yes, I do actually for forward. Ms. Joannes? Do we have Ms. Joannes?
No, Madam Chair, we don't.
All right, in that case, I'll just make a general call out. Is there anyone in the audience, either in person or online, who would like to speak to this application either for or against? Okay, not seeing anybody come forward, in which case, just a minute. All right, so it's fairly straightforward. I'm thinking maybe we can proceed with a vote on this one as opposed to reserving. So I'm looking for members, all those that would be willing to move forward with a vote. All right. Okay, so any final words then, Mr. Saunders, before we go to that vote?
Through you, Chair, no, I don't have any other comments.
All right, then all those in favor of granting the application? All right, then for the record, the application is granted. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Do we have Mr. Falbo back? Yes, Mr. Falbo, come on down. So we have an adjournment request for you. You need, well, have a seat. I'll let you get settled. So you have, there's a request here for an adjournment simply to allow for the capturing of an additional variance. You're aware of that?
Yes. Yes, we, in the process of submitting our application, we discovered there was another variance we needed to apply for, another minor variance. So we adjusted the application accordingly. Alex, maybe you can explain what the new variance was.
So can I have your name and your municipal address, please, for the record?
Yes, it's Alex Budarakos, Alexander Budarakos. Address is 1169 Deer Park Road. And in terms of the variance he's referring to, it is a relief from urban exemption 1474, which states that the minimum front yard setback is to be 1.5 meters and max is 3 meters. Our Our house is sitting at 3.62. So a little further back than the max setback.
All right, so we do have to add, and I'm looking to Ms. Linker just to confirm, but we have to add a minor variance then as a result of this, which means a recirculation. So we're proposing probably a sine die adjournment on this application.
So my question is, can it, because I was talking to the counter and they said to ask you if it could be an amendment instead of a brand new application, because we did amend everything and we submitted an amendment, if that could be possible.
So if it's a new minor variance, then for transparency, we want to ensure that the public is aware that the application is I guess in this case, it would be 4 minor variances as opposed to 3, correct? So we don't, so in those cases, Mr. Falvo, it's a recirculation on this application. When there's a minor technical, say you're off by like 0.02 meters on your relief, that's the kind of thing that we will provide some wiggle room, but not on a new minor variance altogether.
Okay, so one last question then. We have one application that we already submitted minus this minor variance that we just stated now. Do we need to have 2 applications? So one application or?
No, I'm going to get our Deputy Secretary Treasurer to walk through that process for you.
It would be one application. We'd be recirculating it to include the 4th minor variance.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you.
All right. So going back to a sine die adjournment. You're familiar with that? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So with that, do we have anybody for this application? Just a moment. Catch up. No, we don't have anyone on my list. Is there anyone in the audience or online that wants to speak to an adjournment sine die for this application? I don't think so. I don't see anybody. Okay. So in that case, all those in favor, the committee? All right. So for the record, it's unanimously adjourned sine die.
And when would the next date be? Just whatever date is available?
So typically it's based on the requirements of the Planning Act for recirculation, 20 days plus the administrative time and all of that. So do give committee staff a call tomorrow morning. They can have a chat with you about what that would be.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. I think I'd like to come back to, where's Mr. Jones? Yeah, all right. So let's go back to 87 Concord. All right. I think we're not looking for a presentation on this one, so I'm just going to open it up to questions from the panel at this point. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Lecuyer, go ahead, please.
Just a question on in the application on, I don't know what exactly page number it is, but it would be A1 versus A2. I just want a bit of clarification about the difference between the foundation plan existing versus proposed. So if you look at page A1 on foundation plan existing, it appears that the stairwell to go down to the basement is already existing, but in other parts of the application, it doesn't appear to be. And so I just want clarification. Is that staircase already there or is that proposed as part of development?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The staircase is in process under another permit being done right now.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else with questions on this application? It seems pretty straightforward. We're talking about a minor variance for a corner side yard setback. All right. If there's no other questions from the panel members, Let me just go and make sure we don't have, oh yeah, back to Mr. Sleeman then. Mr. Sleeman, did you want to speak at this point? Have we lost Mr. Sleeman?
No, I'm still here. No, I don't think so. I think if we address the issue about the tree, then I think the community association otherwise is okay with the plan.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that then. Then is there anyone else in the audience or online that would like to speak to this application either for or against? Very quiet day. Very quiet day. So not seeing anybody come forward. So Mr. Jones, final last words from you?
No last words.
All right.
Thank you.
So again, this is a fairly simple one. I think I'd like to just move forward with this one and not reserve. So on the application at 87 Concord Street North, all those in favor? All right, so for the record, the application is unanimously granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so that takes us back to, where are we? We dealt with Mr. Sanders, I believe, on that application. Just a minute, let me catch up here. Yeah, so we granted that one. So I think we only have two left that I can see. 540 Golden, where did we go with that one?
We've dealt with that one, Madam Chair.
We
We just
have
have
dealt
number 2 left.
Okay, just number 2. All right, thank you. Then Mr. Yelkotzi is who we're looking for. And Mr. Yelkotzi, we're looking for a presentation from you. So, and just to be clear on what we really want to hear, Mr. Yelkotzi, is what was the previous applications and how does this one differ from the applications that have already been heard and denied by the committee? So we really do want to see the difference between those.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll run through, have the presentation put up, but we can skip right away to pages A16, if we could. Let's say 12. A16. There we go. So, Madam Chair, originally the property was proposed to be developed as a primary and secondary semi-detached unit. It had a entrance to the side of the property that went along the side of the property, and then the secondary dwelling unit had the access from the side of the property, from either side of the property, and that necessitated a significant retaining wall along the side of the property. In addition, the style of the building was of a modern style of building. And so what has changed in this property now is A, all entrances have been moved to the front of the property. B, it is now 3 units per side. C, it is also a more traditional design of a building. We've done a lot more from the perspective of reducing the need for retaining walls. If you'll note on the plans there, now with the driveway entrances and the slopes, I would hesitate to comment that at the previous hearing, I actually failed to indicate that we actually had approached, because this was appealed, the original decision was appealed to the OLT. We actually approached the OLT about whether the revisions that we had made for that second application were sufficient for the committee to hear it again. And they gave us the opinion, as well as FOTAN gave us the opinion, that the committee could hear that decision. The committee did not agree on hearing it that second time. But subsequent to this, now the third time, we've had many more significant changes made. We've had more and further discussions with the immediate neighbors as well, to ensure that the grading and eliminating of the fencing and a number of other sorts of aspects were all dealt with. We also worked with city forestry a little bit to increase the area that we can retain around the existing oak tree that's there, so that the critical root zone is better protected. And as I said, we now have 3 units, and with now entrances at 1 unit at the front going in to the what's basically a basement unit, and then stairs going up for access to the 2 other units that are on the first and second floor. So those are the reasons why both the OLT opinion, they stood down the appeal subject to, at that time, subject to our further application. We did not appeal the second decision by the Committee of Adjustment, because at that time, the client was now looking at a completely different building from the perspective of 3 units because of Bill 23, 3 units on either side, rather than just the 2 units on either side as well. So those are the reasons why we feel that the committee can hear this. And as well, in terms of the changes to the rationale for why you should approve this, of course, the front-facing garage rationale doesn't change for obvious reasons. And the minor variances for lot width and lot area also don't change the rationale for them, because again, they are subject to that character analysis that we've provided for the neighborhood of very similar semi-detached units. I should go back to the first application that was made again, because it really is the one that we're measuring ourselves against. And that application had a lot of issues around retaining walls. The second application had significantly less, and we've further reduced that with this application. And as I've said before, it's our opinion that that the committee could have heard the second application as well. But there is a real benefit to the community and the neighborhood in terms of our official plan, with the new official plan that's been passed, and the intention to further densify. Getting 3 units there now instead of 2 is quite positive. We're very close to the transit way there as well. It is a neighborhood of traditional semi-detached and single-family homes. And so parking was an issue that we discussed with the community association and others. So we wanted to ensure that that in this case, there's actually enough room to park 3 cars, 1 in the garage and 2 in tandem. I don't know if you want me to address the community interaction aspects at this time, or?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. So we met with the neighbors, both neighbors, because they both have very significantly sloping driveways. The grade is significantly higher than what's permitted under the private approach bylaw. And to that extent, what we had done prior to the first application, we actually raised the garages somewhat, again, to reduce the retaining wall requirements. But in addition, we were able to, by eliminating the side door entrances, we were able to eliminate all of the issues between the property lines on either side of the buildings. And now primarily we can rely on soft landscaping as a means of drainage. We have agreed to meet with the neighbors to determine the fences, and also at such time as the lot grading and servicing plan has been completed, we will meet with the neighbors with that lot grading and servicing plan to ensure that it meets with all of their needs, even though only compliance with city requirements would be necessary, but there may be some little things that we're going to do with the neighbors. So we're having a very good coordination with the neighbors, and the community association has spoken up as well in this regard. I think that having the entrances and the porches and the design of the front of the building are much more keeping with that neighborhood character. So therefore, to reduce the visual effect of the front of the building, so that it has no longer that 3-story feel that it had in the first application, but has much more of a 2-story feel in the way that the access to the property is dealt with. So if you're looking at the bottom of this slide, you can see how the front porches and entrances and landings work. And you can also see where the retaining walls, if you look on page, the next slide, please. You'll see the comparison between the original, which is on the lower right, with the retaining wall and the access to the right of the building. And now we've been able to simply do that with basically soft landscaping and a very small, about a 0.6 meter high retaining wall to deal with the grade changes between the properties, with the driveway coming in the way it does. And then if you look at the next slide, please. And this is on the north side of the property. Again, you'll see that the rear access has been eliminated. And by that means, we've been able to, with a very short retaining wall, deal with the grade changes between the entrances to the garage and the basement apartment. You'll also note on the left side of the entrance to the basement apartment, you can notice now that we're bringing the landscaping all the way back up to the building. So the original landscaping is being retained all the way up to the foundation, up to where the original building is actually sitting. That's
all right. Thank you, Mr. Yalkasi. Questions then from the members? Yes, Member Coakley.
So I think excuse me, I think as I've disclosed before, I do have a front facing garage. And although we're not talking about heating the driveway, I also have a heated driveway. My concern though is around the issue of the sort of the dominant character of the neighborhood, that a neighborhood that doesn't have a significant number of front-facing garages, one minor variance is granted to allow one, another minor variance is granted to allow another one. At a certain point, the whole character of the neighborhood risks being changed by a series of one-off minor, allegedly minor variances. Would you like to convince me I'm wrong? To be concerned about that?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes. Can you go to slide number 20, please? This slide illustrates the front-facing garages in the neighborhood immediately to the west of the subject property. So the subject property, am I on my right slide? Yeah. The subject property is on the right side. There's a series of townhouses across the street from that. So you're looking at Churchill on the middle right of the slide. And so you're looking to all of the streets on the immediate west of the property. So the general overall neighborhood character, all of these streets would comply with permitting a front-facing garage. And if you look at slide number, the next slide, please. You'll see that if you go north now, so this is the properties in this neighborhood that are north of this subject property. Again, all except for one of these streets would permit a front-facing garage or carport. And so the predominant character of this overall neighborhood is front-facing garages and carports. The reason why this property is a bit unique is because across the street, there is a housing complex of townhouses. all of those townhouses have carports. Every one of them has a front-facing garage facing into that common courtyard. And if they were counted, they don't. They would definitely bring the number up in that neighborhood to certainly fully comply with the streetscape character analysis form. But this street is a bit unique in the sense that the properties that are north of and on the east side of the street of Churchill don't have front-facing garages and carports. The property immediately to the south of the property is new construction. It has front-facing garages that are very predominant. And I should just say that from the zoning bylaw perspective, the intention is to have a street where the visual aspect of the car is not predominant. And in this case, because of the stairs and the decks and the porches, the garage spaces really do play a subservient role to the overall elevation of the building.
Member Coakley, any follow-up? Okay, so I guess from my standpoint, Mr. Yelkowski, I'd like to go back to the question of whether or not we should even be dealing with it. And I think you alluded to that at the beginning of your presentation, right? So we know that this committee has, not us, but you have decisions that were denying. So what I need to go back to still is to better understand. And don't talk to me about really what we know that it's gone from 4 to, and we know those things. And there's, but with regards to the elements that were denied and how has that changed? So what makes it, what about those elements that were denied? And I'm not sure, and you can go through the decision with me and let me know whether or not it was a full denial or it was a denial of given minor variances. What I really need to get at is whether or not we should be dealing with at all at this point. So walk me through that if you could, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. The denial was, so if you look at the staff planning report, there's an agreement around the severance of the property without the front-facing garages for obvious reasons between planning staff and ourselves. The actual decision that was rendered at the time did not gave a blanket refusal on the severance. It did not at the time say that the severance of the lots, was, or not severance, excuse me, the minor variances for the lots was appropriate. And it essentially just denied the full application. I would say that.
And so can I just stop you there? I just want to wrap my head around this.
Yeah.
So when I look at variances A to F and G to L, they're essentially just mirror images of each other, right?
Yes.
So how many of these were part of that original submission?
So, Madam Chair, I would say that there are only there were 3 variances for each side. Originally, they were for lot width, lot area, and front-facing garage. Okay, the other variances have been added at this point in time are all for the purposes of permitting the 3 apartment units as outlined in Bill 23 and as is being modified in the zoning bylaw. This past planning committee, I think it was 2 weeks ago or so, and will be rising to council, at which time these variances will not be required.
All right, I think, so thank you for that, because that gives me an awful lot more, because what it means then is we were dealing originally with lot width, lot area, and the garage. Now we've got, and that was for 4 units all told. Now we're talking about 6 units with some real design changes with regards to the location of the entrances, with regards to the sizing of these units and that kind of thing, all of which, to your point, is going to be, it's going to be a reflection of zoning bylaw at some point anyway. So, okay. So with that, then I just want to come to a conclusion that we should be hearing this application. From my standpoint, I think there's sufficient change to this application for us to deal with it, but I want to hear from the other members on that. Thoughts, folks? Member Blatherwick?
I chaired actually the first 2 hearings on this application, as Ms. Lajak-Kotze knows. And frankly, we turned down the second application because there wasn't a lot of difference between application 1 and application 2. However, looking at this one, you've added a significant number of variances to your application. You have changed the design of the building significantly as well. There have been significant changes made to the grading of the site to comply with the neighbors' concerns. Problem is that you still are asking for front-facing garages, which have now been turned down twice. So you have to convince me why a front-facing garage is appropriate for this site. However, I'm also looking at the evidence that you presented to us that shows the whole neighborhood and the number of garages that face the neighborhood. And I know the neighborhood well. So I will be deliberating on the front-facing garages, given the evidence you provided. And of course, also reflecting on the position of the planning department, which really hasn't changed when it comes to the front-facing garages. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Member Blatherwick. Other thoughts from committee members? All right, go ahead, Member Coakley.
Yeah, I guess I'm sharing the concern that variances A, B, C, G, H, and I appear to be identical to the ones that were denied. I take the point that you provided an additional maybe context to look at C and I. I don't think D, E, and F, though, particularly given the fact that some of these will become as of right as soon as the city gets around to amending its bylaws. I don't think they change the character significantly of the application. So I guess it comes down to, without being overly technical about it, but I was trained as a lawyer, so res judicata, the matter has been decided. Usually doesn't mean the matter's been decided, but I can now throw some extra evidence at you that you didn't think about the first time round. That kind of doesn't usually fly. Again, I realize we're not a court, we're more flexible, but I do share your unease with this one, that it's not clear to me that D, E, and F change the character, the essential character of the application. I'm just not sure whether the additional information you provided to us today is enough to get me over that. So I'll admit I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I think is in terms of whether we should even be hearing it, quite frankly. Yeah.
All right, thank you for those thoughts. That's helpful. No, Mr. Young-Kotze, I'm hearing from members of the panel at this point. So looking to a member Keklikan, thoughts, please.
Well, I don't want to repeat the same comments. So I share the thoughts that Member Blatherwick mentioned, and there's some thought to be given on the presentation's portion that spoke about the front-facing garage being obvious. The need for that at the front is obvious. So I have the same thoughts as my colleagues here on the committee.
So in other words, just to be clear then, that in fact, this has been a decided, because of the previous decisions by the panels, this is not significantly or substantially different, and therefore a decision, we should deem it a decision has already been rendered?
Well, the evidence provided doesn't show significant difference.
All right, thank you. Member Dickey, please.
Yeah, I definitely hear from my colleagues on their concerns who are definitely much more experts on this with more history. That said, the design, while it has changed, it didn't change the variances requested, but the design has changed, and I think we can acknowledge that. And additional consultation, from what I read in the application, has been conducted since. Therefore, I am open to hearing it, but not guaranteeing that this is going to be an approval.
All right, thank you. I'm going to look then to our Secretary Treasurer or Deputy Secretary Treasurer. So where does that leave us then? Because I think I'm hearing from some of the members that we don't feel that there's substantially enough change between this proposal and previous proposals before the committees that denied this applications on 2 occasions. So where does that leave us?
Madam Chair, I would suggest that you reserve on those 2 issues. First, the issue of res judicata, secondly, on the merits of the application.
Do we not need to deal with one and make a decision about it before we? So I would have imagined if we deem it to be, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not even going to try to repeat that term. But if that's what we deem it to be, then there's no sense in even moving forward with the merits of the application. Is that not correct?
Madam Chair, you've held a hearing and you've heard additional evidence on the application, and so at this point you can reserve and make a decision on those 2 points that I mentioned.
All right, thank you. Member Coakley, go ahead, please.
Just perhaps on that point, it isn't unusual in administrative tribunals where sort of preliminary issues are raised that the adjudicator or the hearer will receive the argument on that point, proceed to hear the evidence and say, I'll sort of wrap the whole thing, decide I will provide a decision separately. So things, I keep an eye on the Public Service Labor Relations Board decisions, and they will sometimes they will bifurcate a decision on, say, timeliness, and then make a decision on timeliness and then convene another hearing on the evidence. But usually if there's objections to the evidence, they will sort of hear it and address the objection as part of the overall decision. I think we probably have enough flexibility to do what the Secretary Treasurer is suggesting, is hear the evidence and then, and then discuss it amongst ourselves afterwards and come to a conclusion first on the issue of whether or not this really is a new application, and if it is, how we decide on the evidence. If we decide this isn't a new application, then the evidence it was heard, but it.
Madam Chair, I would just add that our rules of procedure don't contemplate any 2-step decision-making process. And so Member Coakley is correct that you can deal with those 2 issues in a single decision.
All right, that's very interesting. Okay, so based on that then, Mr. Yelkatsi, I think what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have all the evidence in. So in other words, what I didn't want to do is waste time exploring the application an awful lot if in fact we didn't need to go there. So on that basis, I'm going to open it back up to the members for questions and see if there's anything additional that they need to ask you or that they would like more information about. Anyone on this? Yes, Member Lecuyer, please.
Yeah, so my questions pertain to minor variance F and L, looking at 66% versus 40%. So are any of these units going to be deemed affordable housing, or has there any applications been made for that? Just curious about that.
Through you, Madam Chair, these are strictly designed to be market rental apartments. The ground floor apartments will be accessible. The basement units, will be accessible. And I'd like to just take a little opportunity to explain again, part of the rationale to come back to the committee that I omitted. I'm one that is very strong in the area of community engagement, and OLT is not a very friendly place for the neighbors. I encouraged the client to come back here because I felt A, we made enough changes, B, we consulted with OLT and with a senior planner that in their opinion, the committee could hear this. And I understand that that's their opinion, not yours. But in addition, I think it's important that when we do a lot of work with the community association to bring things back to the committee instead of taking them to LT, where to the community, if they have concerns, it is a lot more accessible. The cost is significantly less for them. The cost is significantly less for us as a community at large. And I would really, really, really think that you have seen enough changes. Yes, the minor variances haven't changed. The buildings are practically completely different. And one of the major concerns was this project didn't fit in with the character of the neighborhood from the perspective of the way the driveways worked. And I guess, and the way the entrances worked, it looked like a 3-story building. That's what many of the comments were. And we've done a lot to address that. In addition, we have done a lot to listen to the neighbors and the community to bring a building back that, yes, we're not supposed to deal with character to some degree now with the way the city does it. I'm not 100% in agreement with that. But I think in this case, you do have the ability to hear it. You do have the ability to make a decision on what we've proposed to you today, which I think, as you can see from the reaction from the community at large, compared to the first application in particular, is definitely wildly different.
Just a quick question then, is parking required here?
Madam Chair, sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So is parking actual requirement in the zoning bylaw for these units?
No, it is not, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if there's no more questions from the committee, let's go to my, I do have a speakers list for this. We have Mr. Tran Trong. Do we have Mr. Tran Trong?
Yes, hi. My name is Tran.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
That's okay, Madam Chair.
The floor is yours. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
I would say Chris did address all the concern that I have raised regarding this design. So we do come to an agreement with the fencing that will be discussed at a later date when the proposal goes through. And then the Chris also agreed to share the drainage system and plan for the retaining wall as well, the drainage system. And then addressing whether there'll be alternatives to avoid any snow melting onto the neighbor's driveway, given the difference in the landscaping. So I did receive the comments back from Chris regarding my concern for the proposal.
All right, thank you. Any questions for our speaker? No? All right, thank you for addressing the committee. Your time's appreciated.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Patricia Lesso.
Yes, good afternoon, panel and Madam Chairman. It's been interesting to listen to this discussion, and we've been working with the agent for the builder now for about 16, 18 months. It is a very challenging lot. It's a very difficult lot to build on, and with the adjacent properties, there's a lot of drainage issues. I'm the co-president of the Westboro Beach Community Association, and we've had multiple discussions with many people about this project. The new plan is certainly friendlier to the neighborhood. It's much easier on the eyes. And the fact that it's 3 units on either side, I guess that's a good thing in terms of housing. There is a concern about parking, even though I realize that parking is not required, but there is going to be some issues around moving cars and snow removal, etc. We are concerned about the city-built retaining wall at the front of this property and how this is going to be managed, but Chris did identify the plans for that. We had some serious concerns about collaboration we had with the builder initially. But Chris, as the agent for the builder, seems to be a much more approachable person and seems to have been more open to our comments and our communication. The front-facing garage issue I find a bit puzzling because there's so many front-facing garages in our neighborhood. I'm a bit puzzled by the discussion on this one. All this to say, the community association feel that our issues have been addressed by this new design. And as long as there is good follow through and communication, as if this does move forward, we'll be okay. So I'll leave it to you, Madam Chairman, and your panel members to make your decision. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Lissow. Any questions for our speaker? No. All right. Thank you very much for your time. All right. That completes my list. Is there anyone in the audience? Yes, come on down, please. So if you can just give me your full name and your municipal address, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name's Sally Fletcher, Fletcher. I live at 280 Churchill, which is north of 284 Churchill, and I have a very sloped driveway. According to Chris, it's about 12%, and I think the city standard is 6%. This has been an issue for us since we moved in 10 years ago, and that's why it was such a big issue when we learned that the retaining wall that was put in by the city about 12 years ago was going to be torn down. And of course, right away, we thought our driveway was going to collapse. And that's because we don't know a lot about how the bylaws work and how the grading plans and drainage plans are coming together. And Chris has done a good job of explaining a lot of it to us, but I still have concerns. And it's something that I actually sent Patricia Lissow my comments and shared them with Jeff Leeper as well, that if they are going to be grading in conjunction with our driveway, it might be the time to look at the slope of our driveway at the same time, because maybe it'll help both of our plans, if the driveway issues are addressed. Because when we have no retaining wall there, they're going to have enough buildup of soil or whatever to keep our driveway secure. But then I saw in the plan, there was a small little wall sort of cut in, and maybe you can explain that, Chris, because afterwards. But I guess the concern, everything has improved enormously since the first time the plan was submitted, but I still feel, and I agree with Tran, that both sides, drainage issues and snow removal issues are a big part of the challenge that is going to remain even with the new plan. So at this stage, we're blowing our snow onto that property in the winter because there's nowhere else to blow it. We blow it onto our property as well, and we can't blow it onto the street. So these are issues I think still need to be addressed. Maybe Chris can just do it offline with me, but at this stage, I still have concerns.
I can certainly sympathize. 12% is huge. I don't know how you're doing it.
Well, we have four-wheel drives now.
Okay. So, and I think this is a great opportunity for you to try and address that issue. It's a matter outside of this committee's jurisdiction for sure. We know that through the grading and drainage plan, of course, the city will have a look at that and ensure, and you can certainly, I would encourage you to get involved in that process to make sure that your concerns are voiced to, I think it's Building Code Services at that point.
Okay.
But do speak with Mr. Yelkotze about maybe getting an extension to that report to deal with yours to see whether or not improvements can be made. That's the only thing I can think of, honestly.
But that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to wish you good luck with that.
Thank you.
So any other comments then?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for our speaker? No? All right. With that, then I'm just going to make a last call out. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this committee for or against the application? All right. I am not seeing anyone else come forward. So I will give you, Mr. Alkonsky, a few minutes to recap. So go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to mention two things. Number one, there's a condition in the approval about a development agreement, and that's going to deal with the retaining wall that has to be removed and adjusted. Second thing with regards to the drainage from the neighboring properties, which are both going to be higher than my client's property, is that we'll be looking at a curb at that location down the side as part of the lot grading and drainage plan, so as to that their water will be able to run down on their property and not onto my client's property. And just as a note, the driveway is 2.2 meters away from the property line on the north side, so there's still going to be some room for snow to pile up. 2.2 meters, about 6-7 feet. So it's not like there is absolutely going to be no room. And we've also, their garage at the back, the fence line happens to be a little bit onto my client's property, but my client has agreed that the fence will, and they use that little space to access their garage with a snowblower. And so we're actually going to manage to maintain that so that they still have access to that south side of the garage on their property. So those are some of the discussions that we've had. But just to sort of finalize on it, yes, I do strongly believe that you can hear this case and that you can adjudicate this case. And I believe also that law is about intent, the intent of law. And the intent here, even though sometimes we don't recognize the letter of the law per se, but the intent of the law as the framers of the law created it would support you making a decision here because of the way that we've approached this project. So that's the one thing. The second thing, as you've seen, we've really worked with the neighbors. And with regards to the front-facing garages, you've heard from the community association as well as the neighborhood as a whole. And in this case, I believe we fully meet with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Just lastly, to recap, that the front-facing garages are superior from the perspective of soft landscaping. That's another aspect. It's impossible in this one, without having a steep grade, not to have a front-facing garage unless you park in front of the unit, and that's not permitted under the zoning bylaw. And none of us would like to do that. The planner could not suggest a way. There is no way unless you create an enormous retaining wall to take these cars behind or next to the building. Absolutely no way. So it's a practical impossibility from that perspective. The lot width and lot area variance, as you note in our submission, there are tens of these lots in this overall neighborhood that are exactly identical in lot width and lot area. So there are many, many lots that have exactly the same thing in this neighborhood. So the variances are minor and desirable. They add additional units as you noted. The general intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. Semi-detached dwellings is a permitted use. The official plan is maintained, in particular, the densification component of our new official plan, and the Ontario Planning Act supports the development within the constraints of our existing urban area. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yankowski. Now, I think I don't even need to go to my panel members to ask this question. Pretty much going to reserve for this. So, and you'll get the decision in due course. So, So thank you very much for the time you've taken, Mr. Elkasi, in putting that submission together. We do appreciate the detail that you do provide. So thanks again.
Chair, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, panel.
Thank you. Okay, so Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I'm now at the end of my agenda. Yay.
That's it.
Okay. So I think we don't need a motion to adjourn. We're just agreement that business is complete and that we don't need to continue. All right, sounds good. Thank you everyone for participating in person. It's nice to see some people. It's nice to be out of that full hybrid mode and actually get some of that more personal touch. So thanks for coming in today.